Here.
Havoc.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this meeting is in compliance with the open meeting law. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda as printed or suggested changes?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move 14A, the mayor's appointments for that alderperson position, to right in front of number 8.
Okay, is there a second to that change?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved to make a change to do the appointment by public comment after or
After public
after
comment.
public comment? Okay, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Okay, approval of the minutes to the June 6th, June 21st, and June 29th minutes as printed.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Okay, first, we have a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comment, is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward and address the council? Is there anyone that wants to come forward? Is anyone? Okay, then we will move on to the item where I am going to try to fill the vacancy for the seat next to me here. We had one person apply to fill the vacancy, and she is in the audience, so I'd like her to come forward and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Midge Swedberg, formerly Schinderly from Algoma here, and just moved back here about 4 years ago. So I grew up here, and am willing to take any questions that anybody might have for me in regards to sitting on the council.
Does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask her? If not, could I get a motion to have her fill the vacancy?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Aaron, would you like a roll call on that?
If you guys want, do you want a roll call?
Okay, do a roll call.
Sure. Schmidt.
Yes.
Havoc.
Yes.
Meverden.
Yes.
Kierke. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Lautenbach.
Yes.
Boer.
Yes.
Dashlet.
Yes.
Mehring.
Okay, okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Mitch.
Okay,
Midge?
okay, well then,
Yes.
Gotta swear
Okay,
in.
so now we gotta swear you in.
okay.
Okay.
Do you
So
want to do it?
if you,
Okay.
if you wanna stand up there?
There's a lot of swearing going on now.
All right, that's just for you, you can read it. I'll read it and you can repeat after me.
Okay.
Okay, please raise your right hand and then repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Margaret Swedberg,
I am Margaret Swedberg,
having been elected or appointed to
having been elected or appointed to
the office of Alderperson, Aldermanic District 2,
the office of Alderperson, Aldermanic District 2,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm
swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will, okay, sorry. Say it again.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, if you want to sign that piece of paper in front of you, please.
Okay. Sure. Okay, then, the next item is going to be consideration of bills, claims, and conference attendance. Okay, could I get a motion to approve the general bills and credit card?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, would you do a roll call, Aaron?
Sorry, who made the second? Lee? Yes. Leverton,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Orr,
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Swedberg.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next item in committee reports. Does anyone have any questions about any of the committee reports? If not, could I get a motion to approve the committee reports as presented?
I would move that we accept the committee reports with the exception of the medical board.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second
Okay, second by Steve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Was, was that an opposition or no? Okay, opposed, okay. Motion carries. Okay, next item in old business. Is there anything under old business to come forward? Okay. New business, Viking Cruise.
Yes, so we have Ken here from the chamber. We have a short presentation that myself and Ken got to see for the first time last week. It's gonna be very short, but it's what we know, besides hearsay, from everything that's going on with the Viking Cruise Lines, starting in 2023 and moving into 2024. So Amber has a short clip, or a couple of short slides, and Ken will talk to him a little bit here. And we will try to answer any questions that we can, but we probably aren't gonna be able to. We will take the information and try to get the answers. So the floor is yours, Ken. Thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely. This has been one of the better rumors that's been going around town that was totally unconfirmed and kind of fell into our lap. So I was tasked to go find out more about it, and fortunately in the last probably 3 weeks or so is when we've gotten the majority of this information. So we're about a year out. There are other places that have gotten port visits that have gotten 2 months of notice. So we're actually probably ahead of the game when it goes that way. So Amber, where's Amber?
She can hear you.
She
Ken.
here?
Just-
Oh, I see a hand,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, actually, you can go to the next one. We'll start at the next one. This is the ship that will be coming here, one of the ships. There's 2 ships, both of them are identical. The Octantis is in the Great Lakes right now. It's in Alpena, Michigan, as we speak. The other one's being built in Norway, the Polaris. It won't even get to the Great Lakes until next year. And it will visit Algoma as part of its maiden voyage. So these ships are, we can go back. These ships are built with a couple purposes in mind. It's not just a normal cruise. One of the things they emphasize to us is that this is a research vessel. It's got a environmental lab on board, a science lab. It's actually got a submarine on board that they use for research purposes. So this is a pretty unique vessel. Both of these are built strictly for Great Lakes cruises. They're about 665 feet long, as you can see, 77 feet at the beam, about a 30-ton ship. 30,000 ton ship, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah. So it's going to be quite a sight when it comes here. And we're really looking forward to it. You might have heard that Green Bay's had a couple cruise ships in the last couple weeks. Sturgeon Bay had stopped at. Just to give you a comparison, they had a little over 100 passengers on. This one carries almost 400. And then another 256 crew members. So this is quite a bit bigger vessel that's coming here as opposed to the one that you've seen pictures of in Sturgeon Bay and in Green Bay in the last couple of weeks. If you want to see more about the ship, if you go on the Viking website, it actually has a deck by deck 360-degree thing you can look at. It's amazing when you look at it. It's unbelievable what this ship looks like and what it can do. Next one, Amber. This is a route, one of the Great Lakes route. This is a route that will bring them into Algoma. It's a 14-night cruise. We are between Mackinac Island and Alpena, so depending on which way it's currently going, it'll either come from Mackinac, go to Mackinac, come from Alpena, or go to Alpena. The nice thing about that is while this is an international cruise, it's coming from a U.S. port, it's going to a U.S. port. We won't have any issues with TSA, Homeland Security, any of that stuff. We won't have to deal with any of it. And that came straight from Viking. So just to give you an idea, the bottom end of this is a $14,000 minimum cruise. That's the lowest ticket price. So the folks being on the ship are going to have some money to spend here, hopefully, when they come into Algoma. Next slide, please. What started out as 6 dates in 2023 turned into 8, and now it's turned into 8 in 23 and 8 in 24. So we've got 16 visits between the two ships that are going to be coming to Algoma. You can see it's, depending on which way it's coming, it'll either come here at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 1800, 6 o'clock at night, or it'll get here at 7 o'clock in the morning and leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, depending on the route. So again, 16 opportunities to make an impression to this cruise passengers and the cruise line, with hopefully down the road we gain more cruise line visits coming here. Next slide. This is a proposed anchorage site, the red mark on the lower right. If you try to visualize this, it's almost straight out from the visitor center. And it's roughly a mile off the beach. So it's almost a 700-foot bright white vessel anchored a mile off of Crescent Beach. Is going to be quite a sight. And not only is it going to draw these people, but I got a feeling we're going to see a lot of people coming down and take pictures and just to see this thing.
Do you know what the draft is?
I wasn't able to find a draft, but it's relatively shallow based on the places that it's going. Matt will be handling from the city side as far as where they're actually going to bring the people in. If we can go to the next slide. These are the tenders that they'll be operating off the ship. There's 2 of them. These are about 50 feet long, 6 feet wide. They draw about 4 feet of water. So Matt will be working with the cruise line, with the harbor folks down in Milwaukee who are going to coordinate for Viking. They'll come up. We just got an email on Friday that said they're going to come up and coordinate a site visit to actually come to the harbor, look at the piers, determine where we want to bring these tenders in. Again, hopefully we have something in mind, but we'll see if it works for them or not. So the Coast Guard will have to come down at some point too and approve this, where they're gonna bring people on and off these tenders. So they'll look at the pier structure, make sure it's worthy, it's structurally safe, all that kind of stuff. Port agents again from Milwaukee, they'll be here hopefully in the next couple of months. As Matt pointed out, we're looking at piers that are potentially movable, and it wouldn't do them any good to come up here and look at piers that aren't there. So we're trying to push this and get it done by the end of summer this year instead of waiting until spring of next year in case something has to be done. The way these will work is a half an hour after the ship anchors, they'll start running these tenders in every half an hour. They'll run them every half an hour until the bulk of the people are off the ship and on their excursions. And then it'll slow down for a period of time until mid-afternoon. And then about an hour and a half before they're scheduled to leave, they'll ramp them back up to every half an hour to try to get everybody back on board before the ship leaves. Anybody who gets left here is on their own to go figure out how to get to Alpena or Mackinac Island on their own. So, as far as security goes, they indicated they would provide security. As far as a barrier or any maritime security type zone or anything like that, that'll be part of the port visit from the harbor folks down in Milwaukee. I can tell you all that Green Bay did. If you're familiar with where they moored in Milwaukee and Green Bay, they've got a walkway along Light Park, and all they did was erected a temporary barrier that went from one end to the other, one gate with one Green Bay policeman standing there. But we did ask them if they would provide security, and they did say yes. So we won't need to involve any Algoma police officers standing there on the pier or anything like that. Next slide. These are the 5 current excursions that Viking is advertising on the website for this cruise, for this port visit. One of my main concerns, and some concerns especially in the chamber, was that they were going to come in here, offload people off of tenders, put them on buses, and ship them everywhere but Algoma. We stressed it pretty strongly during our last phone call with Viking that wasn't going to do us any good, and we weren't interested in doing that. So they were very supportive of that. They want to stay local as much as possible for a number of reasons. One of them is they don't have to rent as many buses to move people. So we've been working on some excursions with a lady named Teresa. She works for Milwaukee Food Tours down in Milwaukee. Viking has contracted her to coordinate the shore excursions. So I will work directly with Teresa and come up with the shore excursions. Teresa will sell them to Viking. So right now we're looking at 6 or 7 different ones. We talked about them kind of briefly with the Viking reps, and they were full force on them that, yeah, they were good. One of the real emphasis that this ship does as a research vessel is they want to see nature, and they want to be involved in local history. So with the amount of outdoor recreation that we have in Algoma, it's not very hard to put packages together that made them real happy. So again, these are very conceptual. Nothing's in stone by any stretch of the imagination. But we're looking at an Anape River kayak and canoe trip, Anape Trail with possibly some birding involved, the walking tour of Algoma, and our concept there is kind of the first Friday that we're doing now, having artists in the art shops, the local shops, that kind of thing, what they're doing to expose the art community to these folks. Kewaunee County Beer, Wine, and Cheese Tour. They originally wanted to go to Door County. We talked about time and distance things and getting stuck on the other side of the bridge in traffic. They said, if we can stay local, let's stay local. So we have the opportunity to do beer and wine and cheese here, so no need to go to Door County. Lambeau Field, some type of a Green Bay tour. People coming this close do want to go to Green Bay, so that'll be an out-of-area excursion. And then the last one we talked about was, again, with the history is, they mentioned lighthouses. They want to see at least one lighthouse. So we're looking at possibly a Cane Island lighthouse and then maybe the Door County Maritime Museum. We did talk a little bit about fishing trips, whether they'd have time to do those or not, get on board. It's something we're going to have to look at, time and distance again, if it'll work. The other alternative was to have some type of display down on the piers, talking about charter fishing in Algoma, types of fish we catch, sorry, Lee, what's the term for it? Seeding the fish. Put them in the water. Stocking, that's the one I'm looking for, yeah. Stocking fish, how we do that here. So that's something we can look at developing as well. But generally, the way it works is they'll have an excursion that'll last somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. Then they'll come back to Algoma, and they'll have free time in Algoma in the afternoon before the ship departs. So they will get an opportunity to do that. The Lambeau Field one would probably be a full day just because, you're talking 45 minutes to get there, 45 minutes back. So that'll probably be a day-long excursion, but we'll try to get them back here yet in time to do some shopping and see Algoma. So that's kind of where we're at. We have been invited to go down and visit the Octantis, the one that's in the Great Lakes now, at some point in the future, to meet the captain and talk directly to the crew and the cruise coordinator on the ship to hash these things out. And we're looking at maybe going to Milwaukee at some point in the future. They sent us the cruise schedule when the ship will be there. I'm trying to coordinate a meeting with the excursion person that I'll be working with to try to knock it all out at once. So once we do that, it'll be a matter of getting everything finalized and then hopefully welcoming the ship. The thing that's a little bit unique is, if you notice at the dates, is the 23 dates are all during the week. The 24 dates are all Saturdays and Sundays. So I don't know if that's going to be a different dynamic. Might be a traffic issue during the summer with boating on the weekends, but we'll do the best we can to try to mitigate the impact on folks here that are trying to use the harbor. So as Matt said, I'll take questions, but just be prepared for a lot of I don't knows, or we're not there yet. So
I have a question, but I'm not sure who to ask it of.
You ought to start with Ken.
The break wall, does that play into this at all? The replacing of our break wall?
No, because we will always have access in and out. So that one I can answer.
I figured that maybe you could.
and we told them about that it was going to happen, so they know.
They're aware of that starting, but yes, we will have access in and out of the water. Does anybody else have anything? Then, as we get informed, we'll continue to kind of keep the council updated here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Okay, then we'll move on to the temporary Class B retailer's license.
So we have two temporary Class B retailers license, one for the Democratic Party of Kewaunee County at Heritage Park on July 17th, and one for St. Mary's Parish and the Knights of Columbus for Shanny Days.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Then the Class B retailer's license.
All right, so next we have 322 Steel Street LLC. Andrew Bradle is here. He, this used to be Steel Street Hops. There currently is no liquor license there, so he is applying for a liquor license for that premises. I do have one ask or one thing for the council to consider when doing any new liquor licenses going forward. This is something that just kind of came about from the Department of Revenue as of late. Not putting a restriction on, but putting something on that says we're going to issue this license, or we're going to grant you this license, but you have to be open in X amount of days. So we don't end up having a license that just sits there and doesn't have a business open. And I don't believe that that's Andrew's intentions by any means, but this was the opportunity where we have a new license up, and it was one thing that the Department of Revenue had suggested. So that would be my ask of you as a council is, do we grant this license, but say that you have to be open within, and then for you guys to decide X days?
What did the council?
30, 60, 90. One of the things that they had said was that you as the council would grant it tonight, and then let's just say for Andrew's case, when he'd be ready to open, he'd say, okay, I'm gonna be open within, you know, a week, and I would go ahead and then issue that license. The license is good for 1 year, so from July 1st to June 30th.
Irrespective of when it's issued.
Correct. Yep, it falls within a licensing year, and that's the liquor licensing year is July 1st to June 30th.
Andrew, how long?
It should be 30 days, no problem.
Second.
For, that he has to be open within 30 days? Okay, so who made the motion? Sorry.
I did.
And who seconded?
Kevin.
And then 30 days on that. Okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Next item is EMS new hires.
There are 2 EMS new hires, probationary members. They have completed their ride-alongs. Andrew Bronkhorst, he'll be an EMT basic, and Ray Savi, he'd be a rescue driver.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a
yes.
question? Is there a qualification as a driver? Someone asked me that.
You have to have a valid driver's license. And then they go through a training process where they go through ride-alongs, you know, just to make sure that they can operate the equipment.
But they don't have to have any medical background or anything?
No.
Okay, that's what he was questioning, whether he had to.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the hires are approved. Next item, a resolution. Algoma Utilities voluntary contribution to ATC.
This is Resolution 1133-2022, a resolution authorizing the Algoma Utilities to voluntarily contribute $4,606 to the American Transmission Company for additional capital needs.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in.
Question.
What?
Pete, what's the ROI running so far, do you know?
It ranges between 5 and 16%.
Okay, that's all I needed. That was it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions of any kind? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is approved. Next resolution, would you want to read that one?
Sure. Hang on. All right, we have Resolution 1134-2022, a resolution accepting Wisconsin Coastal Management Program Grant Agreement number AD 229118-023.06.
Anybody have any questions? If not, could I get a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Aaron, would you do a roll call on that one?
Meverden,
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Mehring.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next resolution is a TRC environmental contract.
Hang on here. But there's a lot of pages. All right, resolution 1135-2022, a resolution authorizing a contract with TRC Environmental Corporation. This is just the yearly contract.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get a motion and a second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that resolution is approved. Next one, the facility assessment one, would you read that one, please, Aaron?
Approval of the 2022 facility assessment for the Algoma Medical Center. So this was the packet that was put in front of you today before the meeting.
This is a rather lengthy document, and it does have a lot of detail in it. And I would like to move that we table this until Finance and Personnel to accept this document. Gives everybody an opportunity to read it, understand it, and move forward rather than just blanket rubber stamping it.
Is there any detriment to waiting until the next meeting to approve it?
I'm gonna turn that to ask Jean, because she is here. Do you see an issue with that, Jean? To table it to Finance and Personnel 2 weeks?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay. The Medical Center Operation Status Separation Package Agreement. These are pretty much the things we went over last time. There's not a lot of new stuff in these documents.
Well, I was the instigator of this particular agenda item, and I requested it to be added simply because in our previous discussions, we as a city council do dearly want to see the medical center thrive, be successful, and retain as many people that are working there and serving the community that are there now. As a result, we had some small discussions, and I believe Mr. Meverden was the proponent of it, that rather than calling something a severance package to the employees, that we develop and look at an aggressive retention package that would encourage the employees to remain at Algoma Medical Center, work with the new management of Algoma Medical Center, and keep the facility operating at its peak performance as it is now. As a result, I've got several concerns about this severance package document. I believe there are some moderate legal questions about the composition of this document, that it doesn't have quite the correct verbiage to be as well thought out and as ironclad as it purports to be for our employees. I also believe that it discourages the employees from giving the new operators an opportunity to retain, to train, to provide them with new benefit packages. And I realize that it's been kind of there's been a dearth of information from the new management team in regards to what those are going to be, but they will be there. There will be something there for everybody to evaluate. So I'm at that point where I'm going to propose, and I haven't made a motion yet, but I'm believing that we would be better served as a council, both for our current employees at the Med Center and for the future proper operation to retain employees at the Med Center for our residents there, to consider our options of a retention program rather than something so how would you say it, so terminal as a severance package. We have no intention of encouraging the firing or release of any of the employees at the Med Center when they are currently being offered positions with the new management. Lastly, kind of going through the contract agreement with the new management team, I believe that there's clauses in there that would cause, if we were to enforce this current, whatever severance agreement, whatever you call it, would cause us to enter into breach of contract, and the sale would not proceed or could not proceed if we were in such a breach without negotiating or renegotiating with the management team as we get closer to escrow. And I guess at this point, I'm probably better off, I don't know, if having our counselor explain why we would be in breach of contract. And then after we do that, then we can consider a motion that I would like to make.
Sure. So this is an issue that we've been analyzing quite a bit over the last couple weeks, and there are a lot of facets to it, but earlier today I was going through the operations transfer agreement.
Excuse me, just for a second. Who's we?
We?
Yeah, who's we?
Restate what I said so I can put it into context.
I believe what you said is we have been considering this for several weeks.
Oh.
Who is we?
We, meaning I've been at the meetings over the last couple of weeks. I've had conversations with Matt and Amber about these agreements. So by that, I mean we. But as one of the city's attorneys, I've been reviewing the documents to make some conclusions and some opinions. So the operations transfer agreement is the document that was signed between the city and Fremont S&F OpCo LLC to make sure that operations continued during the time between the execution of the asset purchase agreement and this document and the buyer obtaining all the proper licensure and everything else that it needs to operate the system. So there's two clauses in here that caught my eye. And the first is section 2B sub 7. Section 2 is due diligence, cooperation, interim operations of the facility. And it says, without limiting, it says in part, without limiting the generality of the preceding sentences until the earlier of the closing date, which is the date that the operations actually transfer, or termination of this agreement, old operator, being the city, shall, sub 7 is, not increase or promise to increase any wages or benefits of, or grant or promise to grant any bonuses to any of the employees of the facility without the prior written consent of new operator, except those reasonable bonuses and wage increases in the ordinary course of business consistent with old operator's past practice. Then also in section 10A, section 10 is entitled employees. Section 10A starts by talking about that the old operator of the city shall terminate the employment of all employees providing services at the facilities effective as of the closing date, which we knew, right, because the city's not gonna be operating the facility afterwards. Goes on quite a bit, and then it says, old operators shall not make any material changes in the compensation or benefits of the employees at the facility prior to the closing date. So I read those two sections as saying exactly what they say, is we're not gonna provide any benefits, bonuses, any other changes to operating procedures out of the ordinary. And in my view, the severance agreement that was presented, that is a bonus, that's a change of the compensation. So arguably, and I think it's a pretty strong argument, that doing that was in breach of these two provisions of the operations agreement.
Thank you.
Isn't a severance, though, an ordinary compensation? Let's say we have to terminate them at the end of when we close, right?
Mhm.
And so it would be an ordinary thing under ordinary circumstances to have severances given out, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree. Severance is common, for sure. I would ask, what was the past practice of the city when employees would depart? Not voluntarily, of course, then you don't provide a severance, but for involuntary separations, I would ask what the common practice was. But this bonus program being large scale and expansive, I would not feel very comfortable arguing, if I were on the other side, arguing that bonus was in the ordinary course of business consistent with our past practice.
Is it the numbers, is it just the details of the agreement you're saying? Like the specific wording of it, or is it the particulars of?
The program as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the payments that would be associated with it. I mean, as we discussed at the last meeting, I do take issue with some of the language of the specifics, but that's not so much what I'm referring to. It's more the mere fact that it was passed and provided, that's out of the ordinary. The severance agreement itself, while it needs tweaking, is, in many respects, accurate as a severance agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from any other council person?
Have we reached out to the buyer to ask if they felt that this would be in breach?
I haven't been asked to reach out to the buyer. I've just been asked to look at the documents. So I know I haven't.
Are the concerns specifically related to the severance pay or the PTO payout, retirement adjustments?
Not the PTO payout.
Okay.
Because first, that's mandated by law. We know we have to do that. But then there's also, I think it's.
Health insurance coverage for.
No, it's in there under employer.
Yeah, under section 10C, talks about how the old operator is responsible for the PTO payout. So that's not an issue. It also talks about that the old employer, the city, is responsible for any COBRA that would kick in. So that doesn't make me very nervous. Also, as for the WRS issue, where there was a handful of employees that got a boost to the 5-year, you could probably look at that as a bonus, but that's a little more, I mean, how many employees were there that impacted? There weren't as many.
7.
I think it would still probably be a breach, but if I'm ranking my levels of breach, that one certainly would lie below the overarching severance agreement.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
All right, I would like to make a motion, and again, this motion is not designed to harm anybody currently employed at the Med Center. What this motion is designed to do is allow this council the opportunity to compare this proposed severance package versus a retention package that had been briefly discussed at other meetings by Mr. Meverden. And I think it's fair, only fair to the council that we have the opportunity to lay both of these things side by side, because the council may, I can't say will, I can say may, come up with a better program for the employees than the one that's being offered. But we can only do that if we have the opportunity for the council to lay these things side by side and consider them. So my motion would be to withdraw the proposed severance offers or severance agreements to the employees, making them null and void at this point, and allow the council to compare this proposed severance package and a retention package to the benefit of the new management team. That is my motion.
Is there a second on that motion? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Aaron, I'd like a roll call.
Wait, let me just make sure I got this here.
Okay.
Okay, so Alderman Maring's motion is to withdraw proposed severance agreements, making them null and void, and allow the council to compare a severance package and a benefit package to the new management.
Retention benefit package.
Retention. Benefit package to the new management.
To assist the new management
Okay.
in the transition.
Hold on. Okay, withdraw proposed severance agreement, making them null and void, and allow the council to compare the severance package and a retention benefit package to assist new management in the transition.
Correct.
Made by Meverden, made by Maring, seconded by Meverden, and we'd like a roll call vote.
Discussion.
Okay, sorry,
Okay,
my bad.
discussion.
Now, I have a question. How does this not then become a bonus also if we're offering a retention? How is that not a bonus in the same way that the severance is a bonus?
Retention bonuses after a transfer or an asset sale or stock sale, usually the way that they work is there'd be an escrow fund created and title to it would transfer to the buyer, right? So whatever the total is, $259,000. If you were looking to go dollar for dollar on the severance issue, the best way to structure that legally is there's an escrow account set up with that amount of money. Title to that account is transferred to the buyer.
Stop right there, thank you. To the buyer.
To the buyer.
The city doesn't retain anything over that, it goes right to the buyer.
Goes right to the buyer.
Okay.
And then it becomes a retention plan, right? So sometimes it'll be a one-step, but two-step, but the goal of it is to incentivize the employees to stick with the new employer. By saying, here's this money
that we have given to
the buyer, and if you stay employed for, let's say, 6 months after the closing, you get that payment.
So instead of giving the money directly to the employee, we're then giving it to the buyer.
In a special escrow account. Yep.
I understand a special escrow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I just want to get the mechanics of that.
So you give it to the buyer, then you've got your plan set out, and you would put that into a contract and say, okay, if an employee sticks around for 6 months, they get X dollars. And then if you wanted to stretch it out, because sometimes companies will, and then if they stay another 6 months, for a total of 12 months, they get a second payment.
So we're encumbering the employee to stay 6 months to a year before they can get anything out of that?
Well, I think folks might debate you on the term encumbering. Others may use the term incentivizing. If you stick around for a while and don't leave, you get an additional payment after a certain amount of time. Then those funds, the way you set up the escrow account is if the employee does leave before the 6 months or the 12 months or whatever you decide, Then after the period is over, whatever those funds that are left over revert back to the seller.
That was my question, that we
Yeah.
would get it back.
You usually include a reversion clause of, okay, if they quit at 4 months and they don't earn their longevity bonus or transition bonus, then that money reverts back to the city.
And what about employees that are not picked up by the new buyer?
Well, that's part of the deal too, right? Is that the deals usually will say, effective on closing, they're immediately terminated by the buyer or by the seller and hired by the buyer. This buyer says in the agreement as it currently states, we're gonna get to pick and choose the ones that we want.
Correct.
Right? That's a little unorthodox. Usually the deals are, they step right into the shoes, and that makes sense because the nursing home doesn't stop working, right? You need the shifts to be covered, you need all the people from day to day. And then it becomes, okay, you know, you design it too, whereas if the buyer just willy-nilly starts terminating people, right? You can structure them so if the buyer takes that control and terminates the employees without cause, or however else you would want to define it, that the employee still gets that bonus.
So all of the power then goes to the new buyer that can do essentially whatever he wants with it, so long as it's in the contract that we set up for the retention?
I don't know that all the power goes to the buyer.
All the money goes to the buyer?
The money goes to the buyer in a restricted account that stays in that account throughout the separation period.
But you're
And the-
saying if all of a sudden they all quit on day number 2, then he'd write us a check back because we get that money back.
Right.
And they didn't wanna give him a chance. But
Yeah.
here you're giving the new guy a chance.
You're giving the new guy a chance, you're incentivizing the employee to stay through the transition. And yeah, if there's the mutiny on the Bounty and they all leave at day 3, well, employees, you don't have a contract, you're free to do that, but you're gonna be walking away from your job and whatever your amount of incentive payment would be.
Okay, thank you.
We would set that up ahead of time then, right? As far as, okay.
Yep. And I would strongly suggest going back to the buyer as part of any such deal in saying, we're gonna take away this willy-nilly discretion of who you're gonna hire, and at 11:59, we're terminating, and at 12, you're hiring. Because this isn't an amusement park. This is a nursing home. The people have to be employed. The residents need the caretakers to be there. And so that's why I would insist on changing that term.
So we would go back to the buyer to ask, to renegotiate that portion of the contract, but we wouldn't ask him if the severance agreement would be considered a bonus?
But you can ask him if the severance agreement was considered a bonus. You can ask him.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can ask him if he considers it a breach. That's for him to decide.
But a retention agreement keeps the people working here
Yeah.
and giving the guy a chance.
Right.
Well, severance not being paid out immediately upon its execution, but delayed for X number of weeks?
Usually it's more of a month, but
Oh.
yeah, you decide what type of period would be enough to hopefully successfully transition employees.
Any other comments? Now we have a motion on the floor. Ready for the roll call on that motion?
Roll call. Dashlet. Yes.
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 Schmidt.
Yes.
Habik.
No.
Boer.
No.
Lautenbach.
Yes.
Swedberg.
Abstain.
And Mehring.
Yes.
The yeses have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain.
And we will move on to the administrator's report.
Look, just a couple things I want to touch base. Any questions along the way, feel free to ask me. 2022 street and utility project, all the infrastructure is now in the ground. Last week they did finish all the curb. You'll see one radius return that did not get finished, that has a sidewalk back. The sidewalk guys will perform that radius return when they get into town. The sidewalk crew will be here starting tomorrow to start pouring sidewalk on the ground. Weather holds up and everything goes right, sidewalk 2.5 weeks, they will be out of here. And binder mat, we're thinking right now, everything holds together the last week in July.
Gus got his aprons yet?
No, he does not.
Did you get his aprons?
He will get aprons probably starting tomorrow morning.
I was gonna say, are you starting from the north and going south?
They will be starting on Navarino and working their way up top because of the cure time in the aprons, because that's all 8-inch concrete in front of the fire station. That will probably be one of their first pours after starting to form. So that's where that is.
Where are you gonna put your trucks, Gus?
Back in the station once the concrete's poured.
Well, no, but once the concrete's poured, while you're waiting for the concrete to dry, where are you putting it?
It,
At the city shop.
it'll,
You the engines too?
yeah, for a
Everything?
month.
Oh, gee, I just thought it was the, ambulances.
Thanks.
No, everything's been out there
Everything,
for about a
okay.
month.
So, any other questions on what's going on down there or where we're at? Cross our fingers, we've been pretty fortunate with the weather and time schedules right now. Hopefully it continues out here, so. Seal coating, that everything has been approved, for seal coating. Scott's will start in town this Thursday. So they'll be doing all the interior work. If anybody has any questions of what the interior work is, if you wanna pass that around. But they will be here Thursday and Friday to put down the first mat. And then Scott's is guessing about 3 weeks before they come back to actually do the sealing of that. Because that first mat is a cold patch bond. They like to let that sit 2 to 3 weeks and let it work itself in, let that oil start to come down before they come back over the top of it with the actual sealing. So there is a map that I have for everybody. You can pass that around if anybody has any questions on that. But I'm gonna move on. RDA, redevelopment area 2, all the houses now have been signed. If anybody was at that last meeting, I think which everybody was, but for Midge, we do have all the houses, and Robert E. Lee is working together to start to get the bid package to get it ready to go out ASAP for contractors to start the abatement of asbestos if there is any, and lead paint, and then move right into demolition of those properties.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Somebody's always asking about that.
Yep.
And last time we had discussed, and I don't think it was a public discussion, that they were all purchased at or below our target. You know, that might be a good thing to let the city know that it's going along so well.
It, like Steve Alderman Bach had mentioned, everything is going along, yes, very well. We had a little scare here at the end, but every house did settle for under what the RDA board had approved or less. So I'm not gonna get into dollars and cents, because there is a lot of numbers outside of just buying the property. As far as people moving, people that had renters in there, so, but yes, everybody
Just
did
in
fall
general,
under,
it's
in
really-
general, the base price that the RDA board had set. Lee, you have a question?
As far as, I've noticed a couple of the houses, the siding ripped off in some sections. Was that due to checking for abatement or asbestos or anything? But
They could have been on 2 of the properties already starting to look at some of that.
okay, because I noticed that yesterday when I was at Denny's, and I noticed that there was one wall that 3/4 of the cedar siding was ripped
There was
off.
actually someone in a pickup truck loading
Cedar,
siding.
that was not the abatement guys then. They would not be all the abatement samples come out in about 1-gallon Ziploc bags.
Right.
So,
And that's why I was wondering if somebody went in and started taking, you know, I don't know if you're letting them do what they wanna
No.
do, but I
No.
didn't think so, but.
no, because as we inquire those properties, they all now become the city's liability
Oh,
as well.
exactly, I was gonna say liability.
So if you see anybody there, myself and the Assistant Fire Chief, Tom Ackerman, the fire department would like to do some on-the-ground training as these houses become available. But if they're not in a fire department uniform or the street shop, they should not be if they have been inquired by the city. Now, if we have not signed papers on them yet and they're taking their siding off, I'm probably gonna say that's a little less we have to haul to the landfill. But if anybody does see that, please let us know here at City Hall so we can address it.
Is there copper piping in those buildings?
There is. Some of them, yes, there is. There's some of it that is older than copper piping. But I know where you're going with that.
Is there,
That's in landfill.
are there gonna be provisions about, putting up fencing once everybody's transferred out? Around the properties?
So that will be part of the contract for the demolition. Once they start, the demolition team will have to fence off that property, what they're working on. So, and when I say fence off, what you're probably gonna see is like a orange snow fence. I mean, they're not gonna be putting up a, 6-foot barbed wire top fence to try to keep people out of it. It's more or less to, as things start to get demoed, there will be some fencing up around those properties.
Are they gonna have animal control too?
We'll work through that. So, any other questions on the RDA block? All right, Public Works laborers position, applications closed on the 24th. Interviews are scheduled to take place later this week. Hopefully, if everything goes right, we will have somebody to bring to the finance and personnel meeting after the Public Works meeting on that same day.
How many did you get, Brent?
We had 7 applications and 7 very good applications from what I thought. So I was happy to see the applications that we received. So, open book will be held on Thursday, July 21st at 4 p.m. The assessor, Mike Mulver, will be here. The assessment roll from 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. After the assessment roll will be available for viewing at City Hall from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's just pretty common, so after the assessment, it will be open. The open book can be here for the public if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns. So, border review will be held Thursday, August 18th, beginning at 4 p.m. here at City Hall. Upcoming election, I'm going to turn this over to our clerk here at City Hall, and she will be able to answer a lot more of the questions if anybody has any, but basically update for the residents that have this on here on TV. Go ahead, Erin, thank you very much.
The next election will be held on Tuesday, August 9th at City Hall. Voting hours are from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. If you are not registered to vote and would like to be, please call City Hall and either myself or Treasurer Shallow can assist you. You can also register in person on Election Day. In-person absentee voting begins on July 26th. City Hall will be open for in-person absentee voting from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. The last day for in-person absentee voting is Friday, August 5th at 5 p.m. Also, if you requested an absentee ballot, please remember that you must mail it back in the postmarked envelope provided, or you can hand deliver it to City Hall to the clerk's office. There is a drop box outside of City Hall. You cannot place the absentee ballot in the drop box. It will be rejected if it is in the drop box. If you'd like an absentee ballot mailed to you, call the clerk's office, or you can request one online at myvote.wi.gov. Any questions?
That's a partisan election, isn't it?
Primary.
Primary, okay.
And Erin does already have it posted out right just outside of her office there. If anybody wants to see anybody that is on that ballot, it is a quite full ballot.
Yes, there are sample ballots available at City Hall. I have them posted in my office. They're posted right out here outside the council chambers as well. And they can be found online.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Anything else?
That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anything that we need to add to the agenda for the next meeting that we want to disclose? No?
Well, to finance and personnel, I would suggest that we add a retention package and negotiation with the new med center buyers and a proposed revision to contract.
Okay. Anything else to add to the agendas? Okay. Now we'll go on to the next meeting date is August 1st at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. The next item is I'm
All
gonna
right.
let you read it.
The mayor is looking for a first and a second for a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This is in regards to the medical center office personnel compensation review. Can I get a roll call, or a roll call, so Dashlet,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Mehring,
Yes.
Kavik,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Meverden.
Yes.
It is 7:01 p.m.
Mayor and council, I would ask the med administrator, Gene Marsh, and Carol Nell are both here. I would ask them to stay into this first part. If any
Okay.
council has any questions,
Okay.
if that is okay with everybody, that'd be my request.
Is it good on opening doors?
Town crier over there.
Yeah, the town crier.
We are out of executive session.
Give him a bell.
Herbie Bello.
Yeah. So wait for you to ring the bell.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Do you need that door open too, or are we okay with that one? As long as one is open, we're okay. Okay. Okay, now we're back in open session.
They good?
Okay. Okay, action to be taken as a result of the closed session?
Madam Mayor, I will go ahead and make a motion to move forward with the post-sale bookkeeping duties as explained with Carol Nell for the medical center, not to exceed a maximum of 300 hours billable to the city of Algoma.
I'll second the motion.
We have a dollar amount.
Oh, I'm sorry, at $40 per hour, plus covering the state pension.
I'll second.
Okay.
Did I get it all?
Okay. And let's do a roll call on that.
Sure, I just wanna make sure that I have it right here. We have a motion to move forward with the, post-sale bookkeeping duties with Carol Nell as an employee of the city, for $40 an hour plus retirement package, not to exceed 300 hours. Is that right? Both
Yes.
of you? Good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so Mehring,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Meverden,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Dashlet.
Yes.
Okay. I want to make a comment before I forget, before you adjourn. On Thursday at noon, Governor Evers is coming to the city of Algoma. And he is coming to this room to make some announcements, and you are all invited to come and hear what he has to say. And then he is going to do a tour of downtown to the businesses that got the $10,000 enhancement for Main Street. And he says he has a really nice announcement that he's gonna do for Algoma, that we will hear about it on Thursday. So whoever can make it, that would be great. He figures he's gonna talk for about a half hour before he goes downtown.
Did you get a time yet that he will be
He,
here?
they're gonna send me everything in writing tomorrow morning, so that I can
Okay.
get it in everybody's mailbox, or you
This
can send an
Thursday?
email out.
This Thursday at noon.
Thursday at noon is when he's gonna be in this room. And
Thank you.
I don't know if he's gonna do something before that, but he's gonna be in this room at noon and plans to talk for a half hour. Okay, then did you wanna make comments
Mitch
about, Mitch?
has a question.
Yeah.
So, what is the status of his license, and when did he apply, and how many days does he have to get it in, so that, I know I was talking with Jean at one point, and she said that they state typically likes to close on the first of the month, so August, I think they said August 14th is the last date, so are we going to meet that August 1st deadline as
Well-
far as, or where are we at with all that?
So,
Just wait. Ask to go back to this topic, because we've already closed that status topic.
so you wanna go back to item I on the agenda
Yeah,
to discuss this?
yep.
Can we go back to item I on the agenda? If anybody would make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is that 12
Yes, be 12I. Apologize, John, thank you.
Kevin made a motion to go back to
Second.
item 12I, seconded by Steve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Now, the answer to your question, under 12I in the update, there is a lot of, I guess, question to be answered there, but the short answer to that, and Administrator Marsh is right behind me, yes, there is a amount of days. So he's submitted for his state license, I think it's 60 days, that they have to answer back, okay? The comment or the question about the closing day, okay? It is written in the contract that I think it's the 14th or the 15th, if his license is occurred, that he has it in hand before the 15th, I believe, we would close on the 1st of the next month. Okay, so, for example, if he would receive his licensure on the 13th, we would then close on August 1st. If he would receive it after the 15th, we would then not close the way it's written to the following month, which would be the September 1 date. But yes, it does say that we will close on the 1st of the month, per the contract. If we get over a date because of the contract, we would have to reach out to the buyers and make an addendum to the contract, because right now I think, and I don't have it right in front of me, there is a date that everything is a hard deal.
It's not a date as much as a so many days after the sale.
Sale, that's what it is.
Which I believe it's 120 days
After
after
the signing.
April 12th, which is the sales date.
Correct.
So 120 days from April 12th, I think it ran us out to, I want to say August 14th.
That's what I believe you are correct. It is August 14th or 15th
After
is that
which
date.
the deal kind of falls apart. So I'm a little bit concerned that if we haven't closed by the 14th, that agreement has to be
An
redone.
addendum to that agreement, because that is correct.
Is there any problem so far with him getting the license, or we don't know anything, it's just the state?
the state of
to get it done
Wisconsin.
when it gets done?
I deal
You can
with the
ask Tony
state on a
on
weekly
Thursday.
basis with different things, and I've been in contact with Administrator Marsh on a lot of this. Is it typical what we're seeing? Not typical?
No, I think it would be good to know when actually the application for licensure was submitted, so we'd know what that 60-day window is, and we don't know that. I did reach out on behalf of the city. Amber Shello had given me a bunch of documents that she thought we needed to take care of. And a lot of them were actually the sale application packets for the buyer. But there was one thing in there that we did need to do something, and the city, as the owner of the medical center, needed to notify the Division of Health that the facility was being put up for sale. And that had not been done. So I reached out to Elizabeth Lobenstein from the Department of Human Services and notified her by email last week that that was done, and she accepted the notification, albeit late. You know, she said that verbally to me that she had not seen this come across her desk yet. And that would mean the application packet itself. I'm in weekly contact with Mary Van Rossum she's the Regional Field Operation Director for the Green Bay Survey Team. And she also has not seen anything yet. But she said she's lower on the food chain.
I have a question, and I'm not sure, I think probably for our attorney. If we have rescinded all of the severance agreements, do we still have to make some report to Workforce Development on the termination of all of those folks? Do we have to redo that all over again?
No, we wouldn't have to redo that because we did it already. You're talking about the WARN Act notices?
Right.
Yep. No, we did that, and I can't remember what date that was, but it's done. So once that's done, you're good. And I think there's if you don't have the transition, then within 6 months or something like that, you might have to reissue, but we should be good on that end. In fact, because the severance agreements were in place, technically that would have removed any WARN Act obligations, but we haven't done it anyway, so we're good to go there.
Okay, I'm just,
So could Matt reach
we
out?
bit concerned about that.
No, we're good on that one.
Sure.
See what's going on, talk to him.
Most definitely.
Because we're getting close, it's already.
We're getting
July.
really close.
There is a Alta surveyor coming to the facility this week. I was notified this morning that they're coming, each week there's something different happening, and that's what we're expecting this week.
Is that a state or a federal survey? Not sure.
Couldn't tell you.
Thank you.
Is it the council's wishes at Finance and Personnel to try to get the buyers here in person?
Yeah. that'd be a
I'd
good idea.
like some of these questions answered.
Okay. I will reach out and try to coordinate that for the finance and personnel, that they would be here in person.
Is there some way to make sure that when they're here in person, that they have access to other folks that they may have to talk to in order to give us an answer? Because we've had them in teleconferences, and every question that
You
was
also have
put
to
to them.
check that with John or Jeff or Craig, and I'll get back to you.
Yes, and we ended up with no answers.
I will reach out to them tomorrow and see what they need to, for say, have their team on board
You may,
at the finance and personnel meeting.
maybe you wanna have Jay here too, huh?
We can definitely reach out to Jay as well. Me and Amber were on the phone and had a little conference with Jay, like late last week to try to get some questions answered, and I got the real estate answers, I'll tell you that.
Which is, that depends.
Like the car salesman?
I'll check on that and let you know.
It's like, that depends.
So, I will try to set those arrangements up tomorrow for finance and personnel.
Then, I guess in closing, then we have some negotiating, for you in terms of getting some written verbiage to them regarding a tentative retention versus severance thing.
Yeah, once that's decided, and if your personnel and finance are meeting with them in July, I would probably recommend bringing up to them a continuation of this rolling closing date. Because the last thing we wanna have happen is that it falls apart because August 14th wasn't met because of something at the state.
Are you
So,
gonna be here?
I probably can be.
Can you be here?
Yeah, Matt, you'll just have to shoot me today. Yeah, I can make it work. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to be ahead of the game on that one, get them locked down to continuing that process until their license is approved. Because anytime you're putting things in the hands of the state, it could take forever. But yeah, I can be here and, yeah, I'll talk to Matt, because I know Downey handled a lot of that stuff in the original
Yes,
contract.
that
So
is
we'll just have
correct.
to talk about delegation and whether you want me to do it or whether you want.
Correct.
So,
Okay, good.
either way,
All right.
somebody.
Now your question.
I'm wondering about the clause in the contract where we had estimated close to $250,000 because of the terminology, date of service versus date of receipt.
That's on the accounts receivable
Yes.
clause, which I believe was being looked at.
It is, and it's not a great clause, to tell you the truth. The way I interpret this is that the city retains the right to, old operator shall retain the right to collect all accounts receivable that are paid to the old operator on or prior to the close of business. So if they're paid, you don't have to collect on them. But the way this reads is that anything that's received before the closing date, the city keeps. Anything that's received after the closing date, the buyer keeps. And that creates a weird 30 to 60 day or whatever the billing cycle is of services that the city provided, but don't get paid until after the closing. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was a wording oversight, but that's the way I interpret it, and I don't think that's a fair deal for the city. I think the city should be receiving for what we provided, so when we're talking to the buyers, I think we should talk to them about clarifying that as well, because that just doesn't make any sense.
It should have read based on date of service.
Yes.
So it should say is date of service.
Yes, not closing date. It should have said something like, old operator shall retain the right to collect all accounts receivable that are paid to the old operator on or before, that relate to services provided on or before the closing date.
And
That's what it should say.
We could do an amendment on that, couldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
We are most likely gonna be doing an amendment to the contract.
If they agree.
Yeah,
You know, they can always say, no, this is what it says, but then we'll say, well, that's kind of ridiculous.
Right.
see what we can't do. But it is a loophole that has to be closed.
I'm behind the eight ball here, but that was, so you weren't, as our lawyer, you weren't involved in the actual wording of the contract?
No, no,
Okay.
this was,
So who actually was then, like, on behalf of the city, who was involved with that?
so my understanding, it's Jim Downey, right? And I'm saying this, I don't know Mr. Downey, and so I'm just telling you what, Jim Downey, drafted or reviewed the documents. I believe they were probably initially drafted by the buyer's council. One of my law partners down in Milwaukee looked at the asset purchase agreement primarily relating to real estate issues. A guy named Mike Van Summeren, because I don't know anything about real estate issues. But me personally, and then the rest of my team on this stuff was not actively involved in the review and
Anything else to come before the council? If not, then could we get it entertained to adjourn here?
So make a motion. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.